Amrita Varma for the Wall Art TV, and I am with V. Sanjay Kumar. And I'm actually quite excited because we've got an author who's been able to write about the art world without actually getting slaughtered yet. Yeah, we're quite candid, as you can see. But Sanjay, I mean, when I was reading through your book and the review which we done earlier, basically I found it very interesting that you can work between two parallels, two different worlds where there is this person who kind of, if the person doesn't know about art and that intimidation which one feels, you have been able to reflect it in the right nuances. I felt that that was a thing which a lot of people, I think, when they either if they're writing about art from the art world's perspective, they kind of leave out. But you being from within the art world and from outside, you've been able to kind of grapple with those perspectives. My question is actually, how did this thought strike you of doing something as, it's not easy, but as complex as what you've actually put together?
See, in a sense it wasn't so difficult for me because everybody enters the art world as an outsider. And in my case it was fairly late in life. So the experience stayed with me in terms of what kind of questions that came up in my mind and what is it that I needed to work with. The other issue was in terms of language of writing. We do know that writing on art has been fairly difficult to read, and while it makes a lot of sense for people who are patient, people who have knowledge of the background or the history of art or other texts which have been referenced, a lot of people don't have that kind of background. So that's purely as background. But for me, it was a story that needed to be told. The story of an outsider who stumbles into the art world at a point in time when he is vulnerable.
Right.
And looking at the impact that the art world can have,
of course,
and artists can have on somebody who's an outsider, so to speak. That's really what interested me.
So now this journey within from your book also has some very interesting bits about psychotherapists and artworks which seem so real, and they're like lying next to the narrator. And it's like another growing kind of a world. But was this something the little bit of exaggeration which takes place, which makes it very interesting? Are these based on real life characters somewhere, or something you saw?
See, I guess the characters, so to speak, are bits and pieces of various other people, which are not stereotypical in nature, but capture the essence of maybe an average person who is an outsider who comes into the art. Okay? But I try to keep the context real. So while the characters are fictional, without very exact resemblance to anybody living, the context is very, very real. Whether it is Bombay, whether it is Madras. So there's a simple smoke and mirror kind of ploy that I've used to call Coromandel Artist Village, which is outside Madras, which most people will recognize for what it is, or a critic calling Bote, or an artist called Newton who paints Lex Luthor. So these are all, these are, in a sense, it's a simple way of saying what I want to say through some kind of a smoke and mirror kind of situation. So the context is real, but the characters are not identical to what somebody may have in mind. Even if you are an insider, then you have prior knowledge of people in the art world, I don't think you'll recognize the character.
No, it's not very easy.
As something who's somebody you've met necessarily.
Yes. You do find like bits or pieces of it, but you're not too sure. I think with this book, I feel like it's just the beginning of a journey. I don't like when I went through the book. I didn't feel that there was a closure happening. I felt it was going to lead to something else. I don't know if you're planning to write more on it, on the same subject, or continue this. but I do feel like there is a continuation which is still lingering somewhere. I don't know. Is that something you intended?
As far as this book is concerned, my idea was to leave the readers some leeway in terms of making out where these characters would go after the book is done, so to speak, rather than spell everything out and make everything very, very obvious. So there are elements which are not fully tied up. Lots of stuff otherwise maybe, but some elements are left open to interpretation in terms of, let the reader figure out where things are going. But having said that, I think the art world is far bigger and far deeper than just for a single novel to really satisfy. And in my experience, there is more obviously to be written, and I would be happy to return to this place if I have a story which makes itself be told, so to speak.
We're actually very happy that there's this whole discovery of art, or life within art kind of a thing happening, and I think it's just the start of something which is going to probably grow with you, also the art world keeps changing. There are these little evolutions which take place. So besides, of course it's not a documentary piece, but it seems to kind of somewhere relate to real life situations as they are. And the interesting part is that for a layman, if a layman was reading it, I think it would create that interest and that sense of discovery to understand a little more about the artwork than usual. So
I would certainly wish that happened, because I find that people are needlessly intimidated when they're confronted with the artwork, and they come with some preconceived notions as to what they should look for in an artwork, or how they should experience a work of art. And pretty much it is open territory, an open field. People can respond to works of art at an individual level, and that's the kind of freedom that I want them to feel. So having outsiders who come from middle class background, these are not affluent people who can afford to buy art or to build a collection. These are middle class people who whether they are artists or whether they are buyers, all the protagonists belong to that space. So the idea was to look at it from their eyes, and to try and tell people in the process of learning which they go through that there really is nothing much to fear other than the lack of your own curiosity. As long as you can stay curious, and as long as you can stay true to yourself, the art world will welcome you. That's basically the experience that I have had with the art world. They want people to come in who are themselves, but they want them to be interesting. That's basically what I want.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Once again, thank you for being here. Geeta, may I please invite you now to take it forward. Thank you once again.
We're grateful to you, Kiran, for so graciously agreeing to release the first copy of Sanjay Kumar's book, Artist Undone, in Delhi. May I invite you to release the copy?
Somewhere in the book, a line reads as follows: art can be difficult. It can offend, infuriate, and extreme art can cause a revolution. To add here, it can be gratifying, give pleasure, and become addictive. Art remains elusive, and what is art continues to puzzle even more than before. In critiquing contemporary art, Sanjay's writing is easy, bold, and irreverent. He is accurately perceptive and sharply incisive. Sanjay, thank you for such a brilliant book, and I wish Sakshi Gallery and all involved with the project.
Series of slides and monoprints that the same artist followed. A lot of it had little to learn. Hughes whistled as he toggled the slideshow. Guess what? Tracy Emin is a teacher now. Yes, sir. This artist is a professor of confessional art at the European Graduate School. A post that she would have created.